Hey there, stampers. Welcome back to the treasure chest. Okay, in this video, I have one 4x6 vertical photo to document. Now, this goes along with several others, and I considered trimming these down into circles. I'll share where I would use them in a minute. But the scenery, like the backdrop, is just so pretty that it just pains me to have to cut out so much of it. So I want to use these full. So I'm going to save this for a facing page. This one, however, I may do my idea and cut this one out. So it's possible that I might use this one and trim it out. Okay. All right. So I've pulled out the Nature's Prints bundle. So the coordinating dies and the stamp set. And then I've also got the Stylish Shapes dies. So my plan, you can see here, I've gone ahead and I've die cut 5 of these. I'm not sure if I'm going to use all of them. We'll see. I was considering something like this. Initially, I wanted to do 3 across, but it's a little tight, and I do want to put this piece in the background just to bring in some of the color down here. And this is a piece of the Sun Prints DSP. So I'm going to gut this and then trim this down a little bit. So 3 across was just a little bit tight. So I think I might go like this, or maybe I won't be quite so symmetrical. We'll see. And then I've used the second largest circle from the Stylish Shapes to die cut this. And that's what I was going to do for these pictures, was I was going to die cut them in circles and plop them in each one of these. But like I said, the background, like the scenery, the backdrop to these photos is just so pretty that it just pains me to cut it all apart. But this one, because they're a little further away, you can see a little bit more of the backdrop, and I've got lots of other photos. I think that I might end up using that one in that way. But then I was looking at this and I'm like, well, that is a lot of white. So I feel like I need to bring in some colors. So I pulled in some Evening Evergreen and Soft Succulent. And what I did, or what I plan on doing, is stamping so that you see some of that color peeking out from behind each one of these little areas. So when I have an idea like that, I will often try it on a scrap piece of paper first. So here what I did was I took a pencil and I actually took the die and just traced the inside of the die. Okay, just with a pencil. You can't see that because I've stamped over top. And then I just kind of chose a couple images and stamped around the edges. And then I will put this on and this over top. And I like how that brings just a little bit of color in. What I do plan on doing when I go to do it on my layout is I do plan on spreading these out just a little bit. So when I trace my circles, when I did the sample, I traced the inside, but the next time I will trace the outside, and I will stamp my images so they're just a little bit further out and not so much in the center, just so that we have a little bit more peeking out from behind. But I think that's going to bring in the colors from the photos, and it's going to add a little something to each one of these clusters without being too overwhelming. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I will speed this up and we'll see how it comes along. Okay, so we are going to start by gutting the 12x12 cardstock. So to do this, I line up my DSP with the 1-inch mark on the right hand side, and I cut from 1 inch to 11 inches. And then I just repeat that on all 4 sides. And that will give me a frame, which I can use. And then the inside piece I can use on a separate layout. Here I am trimming off 3/8 of an inch from 2 sides. I find 3/8 of an inch is just perfect. I find 1/2 inch is just a little bit too much. I just like a little bit of the DSP peeking out from around the outside. So 3/8 for me works fabulous. So I'm just adding adhesive around the edges, and I'm going to attach that white cardstock, which ends up being 11 5/8 by 11 5/8. so that we have just a little bit of that gray granite pattern around the edges. Then I'm going to position my wreaths that I cut out. And I'm going to take the circle and trace around them. Now I'm not trying to get them perfectly in position so that they're evenly spaced from the top and from the left and then from the top and the right. I'm not too worried about that. Same with the center one. I'm not too worried if it's in the center. You're really not going to notice when everything gets put together. So I'm tracing all of those circles so that I know where to do my stamping. Okay, so I'm using Evening Evergreen with that largest leaf image. And I'm going to work on one of the circles first, and then I'll do them all. So I'm just stamping a couple of those leaves. Excuse me. Making sure that it's okay, and then I'm going to bring in some soft succulent and that other image. And then I felt like it needed something else. Oh, actually, I'm going to go in and just do all of this stamping now, I think. And you can see that I'm not always stamping that image in the same position for all of the circles. And there you can see that last one that I just stamped, I missed one of the leaves. I was doing it a little bit too quickly and one of the leaves didn't make an impression. But it's going to get covered over, and really in the whole scheme of things, once you put everything on, you're not going to notice little things like that. So now I'm going in and adding the soft succulent bits. And then to fill things in, I'm going to use that splatter image that is in that stamp set as well. And I'm going to stamp that with gray granite. So some of them will be first generation, some I won't re-ink, and I'm just kind of filling in some of the gaps, adding just a little bit of that gray granite since it's really only around the edges. Okay, and then I'm going to position Okay, so I went and cut out 4 more of those circles for the inside. I feel like the circles just tidy it up a little bit. So they're not super noticeable, but I do like how it kind of cleans up the center. And then I'm going to take that second largest circle and die cut the photo. And that's going to go up at the top. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do for my title and embellishments, and I decide to go ahead and adhere everything down. I really do like how this ends up looking, and it doesn't really need a whole lot of embellishing, so I kept the embellishing to a minimum. I'm just using a little bit of multi-purpose glue to adhere these wreaths. They don't need to be fully stuck down, as long as there's enough to hold them in place. The circles will help hold them down, and the picture that goes over top will as well. So you could replace any of these circles with more photos if you had more photos. You could also add some journaling in there.
You can add a title in there. You could actually even do a cluster on top if you wanted to. So I do a stamped greeting inside one of them. I've got the photo inside one of them, and my title is on one of them as well. The other two are just blank, but I might have Jordan do some journaling in one of them. This would be a great layout for any kind of outdoorsy photos. It's amazing how different it looks with just that little bit of stamping around the edges. Okay, so I wasn't sure what to do for my title, and I remembered that I had bought these color cast. These are acrylic shapes and words, and I bought them specifically for wedding photos because the colors were the right colors. So there are these hearts in here and this title that says love you more. Now the hearts, you could get something similar. We have a similar shaped heart in the catalog on page 170 in the brushed shapes dies. So you could do that. I don't end up using any of these hearts on this particular layout, but on the facing page layout, which I think I'm going to do next week, I likely will end up using one or two of those hearts. So here I've pulled out a greeting from, I just have to look up the name of the stamp set. From the Peaceful Moments stamp set, and it says, these are the moments we'll look back on with joy. And I'm going to ink it up, the whole thing, with Soft Succulent. And then I'm going to take the Evening Evergreen marker and just ink up the scripty words. So because it's green on green and I inked it with the lighter color, I can just go over top with the darker green, and I'm not too worried about it. And I stamped on that extra circle that I had cut, but I am going to trim it down with the third largest circle, and I'm going to layer that on top of that other circle. So there'll be two circles on that lower left one. And then I grabbed some Evening Evergreen ribbon, and I'm just tying a bow. I fuss with this a little bit. I didn't like how my bow looked, so I tried to tie it again. And I kind of auditioned it in a couple different places. I end up going up at the top. I hesitated putting it there because I kind of thought it looked kind of like a Christmas ornament, but I felt that it looked better there than it did off to the side. All right, now I feel like the photo needs a little bit more on it. It just needs to pop off the page. So I'm going to grab some cardstock and do a few layers of matting. Okay, so this circle I put on flat, and then the one with the stamped greeting I pop up using dimensionals. And then that's going to go on just with a mini glue dot. Okay, so here is where I pull out some cardstock. So I pulled out Soft Succulent and Evening Evergreen, and I really wanted to do 2 or 3 layers of mats. So I grabbed Soft Succulent and Evening Evergreen, and I do like the way that looked, but I wanted to add some white in between. And then I thought, well, there's not a whole lot of gray granite on this page. Maybe I need to do one of the layers as a gray granite layer instead. So I thought of doing the gray granite and then the evening evergreen with some white in between, but I didn't love it. I preferred it with the soft succulent over the gray granite. So we're going to go with a 1/16 of an inch border in the white copy paper. So that's going to be our first layer. And then we'll do a 1/16 of an inch in the soft succulent. That'll be our second layer. And then we're going to go with, it's about 1/8 of an inch, maybe slightly larger than 1/8 of an inch in the evening evergreen, for a little bit of a larger mat. And it really makes the photo pop off the page. And I'm not really measuring, I'm just eyeballing it so that I have just a smidge of that green showing. And same with the next layer, I'm not going to measure, I just eyeball it. And then I'm going to take my paper snips and go around the edges just to distress it a little bit, give it a bit more texture. And then that gets stuck down just with regular flat adhesive, so I just use seal. And then I add my title, "The Love You More," using some mini glue dots. And then it's done. So if this layout inspired you to create something similar, be sure to share it over on our Treasure Chest Facebook group. And I believe that next week, I haven't designed the layout yet, but I do have some photos that I want to do on the facing page, which will be the left-hand page. So this is going to be the right-hand page that I think I'm going to do next month. So you'll see similar colors and a similar idea, but a completely different layout. All right, so thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.